Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we take your source material and really try to unearth the most important insights, giving you a shortcut to being truly well-informed. Today we're diving deep into a fascinating piece of South African legislation. It's the Armaments Corporation of South Africa, Limited Act 51 of 2003. Now, I know what you might be thinking. An act about an armaments corporation. Why should I care? Well, stick with us. Whether you're just a curious citizen wanting to understand how national resources are managed, maybe a law student trying to get your head around state-owned enterprises and accountability, this deep dive offers a unique window. It's a look into a critical aspect of national security, economics, and governance in South Africa, our mission. To explain this act clearly, engagingly, outline its purpose, key bits, legal context, how it works in practice, and why it actually matters.
That's exactly right. And, this isn't just some dusty legal document. It's really the blueprint for Armscor, a vital state-owned entity. It lays out how Armscor operates, how it's held accountable, and crucially, how it ensures efficiency in what is a very sensitive sector. So yeah, we're here to distill this complex act into, well, clear, engaging insights, plain language, relevant legal terms where needed, so you understand not just what it says, but really why it matters. Let's unpack this.
Okay, let's kick us off then. The basics, the who and the what. What exactly is the Armaments Corporation of South Africa Limited, and what's its fundamental identity according to this act?
Well, what's quite interesting right at the start is that the act doesn't actually create Armscor. It confirms the continued existence of the corporation. It was initially set up by an older act, way back in 1968, so it's not new. But this 2003 act basically replaces its founding paperwork, gives it a modern legal footing. And critically, Section 2 makes it clear. The South African state is the sole shareholder, always. And the Minister of Defense exercises that ownership control. Plus, it explicitly states Armscor is a juristic person capable of suing and being sued in its own name.
Okay, juristic person. Can you break that down a bit for those of us not deep in legal jargon? What does that mean in practice?
Sure. Think of it like this. Even though the government owns it 100%, Armscor acts like its own separate legal entity. Like a company, it can own property, it can sign contracts, it can go to court or be taken to court, all under its own name, separate from the government departments. It gives it independence to operate.
Got it. Independent legal standing. And, speaking of identity, Section 2 has this really interesting bit. It stops anyone else from using a name like Armaments Corporation of South Africa, or even just Armscor, if it might confuse people. And the penalty, a hefty fine or prison for up to 5 years, or even both. That seems quite severe just for a name. Why such strong protection? What's the thinking there?
It really does underscore how unique and official this entity is meant to be. It's more than just preventing brand confusion, like with regular companies. This is about national security, establishing absolute clarity. Armscor is the official channel for the state's defense procurement. If others could use similar names, it could cause huge problems. Misrepresentation, maybe even cover for illicit activities, undermining public trust, or creating chaos in sensitive international deals. It locks down the state's control.
Right. Makes sense. It reinforces that exclusive official status. Okay, so Armscor has this clear, state-backed, legally distinct identity. What about its core purpose? What does Section 3 say Armscor is actually for?
Its primary mission is laid out pretty clearly. It's there to meet the Department of Defense's needs, effectively, efficiently, and economically. That covers two main areas. First, defense material requirements. That's the hardware, weapons, vehicles, systems, everything they need to buy or acquire. And second, defense technology, research, development, analysis, test, and evaluation requirements. So it's not just buying off-the-shelf stuff. It's involved in R&D, testing, making sure things work properly, developing new capabilities. And importantly, for anyone interested in how public money is spent, the Act specifically says Armscor must follow accepted corporate governance principles, best business practices, and generally accepted accounting practices. Fairness, transparency, economy, efficiency, accountability, lawfulness, it spells it all out.
Okay, those governance principles sound crucial, especially, as you say, for a state-owned entity handling public funds in such a sensitive field. But, defense often involves secrecy. How does Armscor realistically balance that need for transparency and accountability with, well, the operational realities of defense? Are there unique challenges in applying best business practices here?
That's a really good point, and it's definitely a balancing act inherent in the act itself. While, certain operational specifics might need to stay confidential for national security reasons, the process needs to be transparent. So how decisions are made, how money is managed, the procurement procedures, those have to be open to scrutiny by oversight bodies. The challenge is setting up strong internal controls, audits, things like that, which respect the need-to-know principle but still make sure public funds are used responsibly. It's a constant negotiation, really, between security, efficiency, and maintaining public trust.
Okay, so that's the why. Let's get into the what. What does Armscor actually do day to day? Section 4 lists the functions of the corporation, and it seems really broad. Can you walk us through some key roles beyond just, buying stuff?
Absolutely. It goes way beyond just simple acquisition. For instance, it actively manages technology projects. It sets up complex program management systems. It also provides quality assurance capabilities, making sure the kit actually meets the standards it's supposed to. That's huge. And of course, it handles tender and contract management, which is a massive, complex job in itself. But something that's often overlooked and quite important is its role in disposing of defense material.
Disposing, you mean getting rid of old equipment.
Exactly. That whole life cycle management piece. It includes upgrading older gear, selling surplus items if appropriate, donating them, or ensuring they're destroyed properly and safely if needed.
That disposal part is significant, yeah. It's the whole life cycle, not just bringing things in. I also noticed something about compliance with international law. That sounds like a big responsibility.
It really is. Section 4, specifically subsection 2G, mandates Armscor to set up a compliance administration system for the Department of Defense. This is specifically linked to international law, referencing things like the National Conventional Arms Control Act and the Non-Proliferation of Weapons of Mass Destruction Act.
Yeah.
So Armscor plays a direct role in making sure South Africa meets its international commitments on arms control. It's not just a domestic player. Plus, it supports and maintains strategic and essential defense industrial capabilities within South Africa and even provides marketing support to local defense industries. So there's an economic and industrial angle, too.
Wow. Okay. So it's much more than just a government shopping agency. It's a strategic partner in defense, compliance, even industrial policy. And the Act also mentions functions it might perform, with the ministers okay, like commercial activities or even working for other countries. That seems like it opens up a whole other dimension.
It does, potentially. Section 4.3 allows for that, with approval. Armscor may exploit such commercial opportunities as may arise from its main defense work. It could also procure commercial stuff for other government departments, and significantly, it can perform functions for any sovereign state, but that's always subject to other laws, like the Regulation of Foreign Military Assistance Act. So yes, it suggests potential for international collaboration, maybe even generating some revenue outside the core defense budget.
And to keep all these different activities straight, Section 5 talks about service-level agreements, SLAs. Why are these so important for how Armscor operates?
SLAs are basically the bedrock of accountability here. They're mandatory agreements. Armscor has to have them with the Department of Defense or any other government body or foreign state it's providing services to. These SLAs have to spell out clear, measurable objectives and milestones. They need a system to monitor the delivery of service, and they have to state the rate at which the corporation may charge for its services. And crucially, they must be based on the Shareholders' Compact contemplated in the Public Finance Management Act.
Okay, hold on. Shareholders' Compact and Public Finance Management Act. Can you quickly unpack those terms for us?
Sure. The Shareholders' Compact is essentially the top-level agreement between the government, as the owner, the shareholder, and Armscor. It sets the big-picture goals and performance expectations. And all of this happens under the umbrella of the Public Finance Management Act, or PFMA. That's the main law in South Africa governing how all public money is managed. Think budgets, spending, reporting, accountability. So these SLAs connect Armscor's specific tasks directly back to the government's overall strategic goals and the strict rules for managing public finances.
Got it. So it's a clear framework for delivery and accountability tied right into national financial rules. Okay, let's switch gears slightly. How is Armscor actually run? Who's in charge?
Section 6 deals with that. It says the affairs of the corporation are managed and controlled by a board of directors. Pretty standard for a large entity. This board has a specific structure. 9 non-executive members, think independent oversight, and 2 executive members who are the day-to-day bosses. The chief executive officer, CEO, and the chief financial officer, CFO. And the Act explicitly calls this board the accounting authority for Armscor under the Public Finance Management Act, meaning the buck stops with them regarding financial management and compliance.
And who gets to sit on this board? Section 7 seems to have some pretty specific rules about who can and can't be appointed. Why those restrictions?
That's right. The non-executive members are appointed by the Minister of Defense based on their knowledge and experience. The idea is that together they have the skills needed to guide Armscor effectively. But there are some key prohibitions. No sitting politicians, members of the National Assembly, NCP provincial legislatures, or municipal councils. Also, no current public servants. The aim here is clearly to ensure a degree of independence from direct political interference or day-to-day government bureaucracy. Given the sensitive nature of defense procurement, that independence is seen as vital. Board members serve 3-year terms, and they can be reappointed just once for another 3 years.
Okay, that independence makes sense. But in a field like defense procurement, the potential for conflicts of interest must be huge. How does the Act, particularly Section 14, tackle that? And what happens if someone breaks the rules?
Section 14 is incredibly strict on this, and for good reason. It demands that any board member must disclose to the full board if they or their spouse, partner, or close family member have any direct or indirect interest in any of Armscor's procurement activities. Any contract, any deal. Once they've disclosed it, they must withdraw from participation in any discussion or decision related to it, unless the rest of the board decides the interest is truly minor or irrelevant. And these same rules apply right down the line to employees, to members of board committees. They have to disclose interest to the CEO.
And the consequences for hiding an interest or not withdrawing, you mentioned they were severe earlier.
Extremely severe. The Act makes it very clear. Failing to disclose or failing to withdraw is a criminal offense. And the penalty can be a significant fine or imprisonment for a period not exceeding 15 years, or to both a fine and such imprisonment. 15 years. That really hammers home how seriously potential corruption or conflicts are viewed in this context. It's a major deterrent.
15 years. Wow. Okay, let's talk money. How is Armscor actually funded? And what kind of financial oversight exists beyond the board being the accounting authority?
Section 15 lays out the funding streams. It comes from its share capital, the initial investment determined by the Ministers of Defense and Finance. Then there's money appropriated by Parliament, which is essentially taxpayer funding allocated through the national budget. It can also earn revenue, like interest from investments, and it can raise or borrow money. Plus, it can establish reserves. On the oversight front, Section 16 mandates annual audits of its financial statements. These have to be done according to the Public Finance Management Act, usually involving the Auditor General. And interestingly, the internal auditors from the Department of Defense itself must have access to all the documents related to those service-level agreements we talked about earlier. So there's internal departmental scrutiny, too.
That sounds like multiple layers of financial checks. Good. Now, there's also something specific about evaluating acquisitions before decisions are made. Section 17, what's that about?
Yes, Section 17 is really key for ensuring value for money and strategic alignment. It requires Armscor to provide the Secretary for Defense, that's the top civil servant in the department, with a system specifically designed to evaluate all defense material acquisitions prior to a final decision being made. So it's a pre-check mechanism. And the Act demands this system must be fair, equitable, transparent, competitive, and cost-effective, and compliant with all other relevant laws. It basically forces a structured, objective review before billions might be spent, aiming to prevent bad deals or strategically unsound purchases.
Right, a crucial safeguard. Okay, we're nearing the end of the Act's main points. How does it handle the transition from the old 1968 law? And what about protecting sensitive information and intellectual property, obviously critical in defense?
Good questions. Section 23 deals with the transition. It formally repeals the old 1968 Act and its amendments, cleaning the slate legally, but it includes savings clauses. These are important because they ensure continuity. For instance, the board members and employees who were there under the old Act just continue their roles under this new 2003 Act. No need to reappoint everyone, avoids disruption, smooth handover. And yes, information security and IP are specifically addressed. Section 20 puts a clear duty on Armscor to take all necessary measures for the efficient protection or safeguarding of information, records, and property, including its premises. Then Section 22 deals with intellectual property. It says any IP rights vested in the Department of Defense patents, designs for equipment developed, are held in custody by Armscor on behalf of the department. Armscor then has to manage and use this IP as directed by the Secretary for Defense, likely outlined in an SLA. So it centralizes the management and protection of valuable state-owned defense technology.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground there. We've really taken a deep dive into the Armaments Corporation of South Africa, Limited Act 51 of 2003. We've seen how it confirms the existence of this key state-owned entity, sets out its broad objectives, its really diverse functions, way beyond just buying things, covering tech management, international compliance, even supporting local industry. And we looked at the strict governance, the financial oversight, the accountability measures built into it. It really is a comprehensive framework trying to manage a very specialized, very sensitive sector, balancing those national security needs with transparency.
Absolutely. I mean, looking at it closely like this, the Act really shows how you can use legislation to formalize, control, but also empower an entity like Armscor. Empower it to serve national security, but within clear boundaries of transparency and international standards. It's a fascinating example of modern governance tackling a strategic, complex industry. Shows how detailed laws shape real-world operations.
So as you, our listeners, reflect on this deep dive, here's a final thought to mull over. Armscor has this unique mandate, right? Balancing core national security and defense duties with this potential for commercial activities, even serving other countries. What kind of ongoing ethical dilemmas or strategic challenges, maybe even unexpected opportunities, do you think arise from that tricky balance? How does a legal framework like this act both enable and perhaps constrain an organization operating in such a sensitive and ever-changing global environment? Something to think about. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.